Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another live session. This time myself and Lukas, live from, I would have said the heart of Zurich, as it often is, but this time from the heart of Uster. A topic that I've been asked a lot about if I would do a session. It's about starting a recruitment business or starting your own recruitment business on your own terms in Switzerland. My guest, Lukas, the relationship and connection goes back quite some years.
Well, Lee met me when I came back from Hungary as a young recruiter, coming back home after a year abroad, where I focused mostly on niche roles in a recruitment process outsourcing function. And I basically had a very wide focus, and ever since we worked together. And then I decided to become independent at some point. And now I am kind of the company that really actively searches for the dream employees, so to say. That's what I like to at least advertise myself. And it seems to work pretty well, actually. So yes, I've been doing that very successfully in the last bit more than 2 years, 29 people by myself. And I must say, there's definitely potential on the market.
When did you first think about setting up your own company, and why was that?
I believe everyone has kind of this freedom fantasy, some point in time when they're thinking, what would be if I was actually my own boss? It happened to me also with one of my first bosses. From time to time, I wasn't always happy, and you begin to question, what if I didn't have these constraints in general? You could choose whatever you want to do, which time, because within big companies, for example, there's always these constraints that you face regarding admin work and stuff like that. That's not always to the point and to the target. And I probably thought, it would be cool to be my own boss. I guess everyone actually at some point in time fantasizes about that. I was always someone who was really ambitious. I mean, I used to stay in the office sometimes until like 2, 3 a.m. just to find those people.
I can agree with this. Lukas was one of those people I had to say, hey, go home. Stop working. I think we even banned your equipment at one point. But yeah.
Because I can't bear with my own pride not to find those people. And I saw that there's a big potential on the Swiss market for really trying to find the perfect match. Often companies, even recruitment companies, they go for the low-hanging fruits. They have a big database. They sometimes, if they're too lazy, some of the bad players that I've heard, will even pull away from their own client someone they previously just placed, as long as the money is common. That's one of the general problems in Switzerland. Some bad players, or a few, I guess, only bad apples, just want the quick cash. And that's something I always thought, come on, why just not do in this small market where everyone talks to each other, just to no sorry to say that word, but straightforward, honest in the clients' and candidates' interest. And then it happens so that one point in time I was complaining about my manager and my stepfather, and I'm coming from quite an entrepreneurial family, and he told me, why don't you just become independent? And I was like, would be cool, not gonna work.
Too much effort.
Exactly. And then the requirements that you need for actually becoming independent is really, we'll talk about that later, I guess. And how about you? What was your ambition to becoming? Was it me becoming independent earlier, and you're like, after 5 years,
exactly.
If he can do it, I can do it.
No. I mean, I guess like yourself, from a family point of view, my father and brother are running their own business, and I think so that entrepreneurial side was always there in me as well. I actually had my first company when I was about 21, distributing Swiss skateboards across the UK. That's a story for another time. So if you like skateboarding, feel free to reach out to me. I think certainly there was a part of kind of what you mentioned about freedom and flexibility and things like that. I think I saw an opportunity on the market that I didn't feel was filled and serviced, and where I could really add value. A huge part was I always came from, for example, recruiting IT profiles. That's my background. Then leading teams in IT and finance and engineering. I was never an expert in IT. I was an expert recruiter. And I was always a bit jealous when I had people in my teams, for example, in the life science area. It's quite common that they had a degree in some kind of scientific subject. And so they were really able to speak with people at a different level. And I felt over the years I'd become an absolute expert in recruitment. And that I could then offer a lot of value and really understand the needs of recruiters. It's basically that gave me an opportunity to add real value to the candidate market, to the client market, and to be a real expert. You know, I'm coaching and advising candidates that I've hired myself, that I've trained myself. You know, people, one sitting right next to me as a great example. So that was definitely a big driver for me. And yeah, I guess, you know, wanting to see if I could do it, if I could make it. You know, I'd always been successful as a consultant or a manager in the companies I've been, but it's very different from doing your own business, let's say.
I think we should also distinguish, when do you start to think about it and when do you actually start seriously considering? Because that point for me was after leaving my former employer, because I had some inadequate support, I thought, and I was like, you know what, I could actually do this alone. And then I had some people that left actually the company, and I thought, if those two cool people are leaving and everything else is just not going to be the same. So I actually literally the day that they decided to resign, I told them, guys, if you're leaving, I'm also leaving. And it was not really considering yet going independent. I knew that if you're a good performing recruiter on an agency side, there's always going to be enough jobs for you on the corporate side. And there's plenty of good companies outside of the big multinationals that will allow you to strive in a much more less KPI targeted environment and with a bit less pressure.
I think to answer that, I think either one or two things happen. Either circumstance happen which put you in a situation to assess your career and what you're doing. So perhaps either you are redundant, there's restructuring, you have new managers, team changes massively in the dynamics, and you're sitting there saying, this isn't right for me anymore. And then you go through the natural process. Do I want to go do the same thing at another company, or is it time for me to start my own business? So I think that can happen. Or perhaps with myself, that it had been something for years that was in the back of my mind that I'd always thought about doing. And there was always opportunities or something coming up from my career point of view that maybe just the timing was never the right thing. And then at some point I said, you know what, now is the right time. With not to overcomplicate things, you don't need a lot. You need to understand how to do it, that's clear. But setting up a recruitment company is, in my opinion, not as hard as I first perceived it to be. But you need to have several years in the business in order to be able to obtain the recruitment license. You're not allowed to have a recruitment business without a license. You need to know where your niche is, what you're going to be doing, where.
Infrastructure, data privacy.
Yeah, exactly. You know, to what CRM are you going to use to manage the whole privacy side of things? These are things which are very easily workable. And at the same time, Lukas mentioned 6 months. I mean, I would always encourage people to have perhaps the opportunity to cover their costs for 1 year. I think that's, for me, is 6 months is absolutely doable, and people have done it like that. Because, I mean, we were speaking about it before. You can make a placement within your first couple of months. If it's a big company, it can actually take sometimes longer for you to receive the money. You need to not be pressuring your clients. Oh, where's that payment? Where's that payment? Because of your bank balance. You know, so I think that for me, having a year's money, and ultimately, if it doesn't work in a year, it's not going to work at all.
I think if you're the kind of guy that enjoys 9 to 5, you know, you definitely should consider moving independent. That's my theory. If you find yourself actually wanting and being passionate about the job, trying to find those people and trying as hard as you can, pushing 70-hour weeks and being blocked by certain factors, then definitely try to give it a go, especially if you're already performing. Easy one.
Easy one, exactly. What do you enjoy the most about being your own boss?
The freedom, of course. I mean, you know, enjoying a job that I like doing, that I'm not too bad at actually. Deciding freely what to do, when, where, you know, just prioritize. A call comes in from an important client, and the whole daily schedule is completely upside down. Learning something new every day. I'm not too specialized. I don't just do Java developers or so. So I really get to know the people, get to also have new inputs in what exactly they're doing, more details. I'm very curious, and that helps me as well to to enjoy everyday life. And also the diversity in the tasks. Yeah, you're not a corporate recruiter that just does the research part, but you really have to do everything from admin to go to a trust accountant and so on. It's really I really enjoy that. Also interacting with people on a personal basis, not just with a telephone. Once actually the CV becomes the person opposite of you, I think that's really fascinating, because the best CV doesn't mean that the person is really a good match with your client, and that's something that I really enjoy.
Yeah, it's great. It's great to hear, and I think we feel and hear your passion as well and motivation for it. And yeah, I think for me, it's similar stuff. I mean, the flexibility, yes, and flexibility doesn't mean that I sit at home all day and do nothing. You know, I have an office in Zurich. I'm out and about, but it's just, you know, being able to work when and how you want. The agenda side of things, it's huge. Obviously, I have 2 kids as well, so being able to be there over the last 2.5 years. I've also been a football coach for my son's football team. You know, things that I couldn't have done when I was in the corporate world. So definitely the flexibility. But I think for me, it's also about passion. You know, I love doing what I'm doing. Hopefully, you guys feel that and see that from the live sessions that I'm doing, the content I'm bringing out. That was something I never actually expected. I didn't think that I would have the opportunity to use my creative side. I also have to use my analytical and administrative side, which is not my favorite part or strong point, let's say, but just the whole creative side that I've been able to do in that journey, to have something that I can be so passionate about, to enjoy so much, and to do things in my way. You know,
climbing the Maslow pyramid to the very top. I guess.
Absolutely. So the next question that we had was, what were or are the biggest challenges you found over the last couple of years? Let's say?
The first one starting out was financially as well. You really have to make sure that you survive for a few months, and I'm glad that happened quite well. I'm not someone who enjoys being in debt, and that kind of pushed me even harder to just keep working and finding those people quickly. You have to be always, or I choose deliberately to be always available pretty much for my clients. And that's something that I kind of want to change soon. But then again, that's also where I add value. If there's an urgency, I will be there. I will be on call, and I can drop everything for a good client and then start searching. I go on vacation and I work from a pool in the sun. You know, you shouldn't do it. I do not recommend it, but that's something that I do. And
with all the positives of running your own business. That's one of the negatives. It's not all roses and sunshine and however you want to put it. There's also challenges. There's also other things that perhaps people don't think of.
What about you?
I mean, there's been different challenges. I think for me, at times, it's been juggling everything. You know, the workload. I remember back in I think March last year, I think in 1 week I had something like 21 interviews run. And then I'm sitting there saying, okay, I have to get 21 feedback, give 21 feedbacks, manage that whole process. And what I saw was happening at the time, honestly speaking, is that the quality of my work was suffering. You know, that I wasn't able to give the high level of service that I really try to pride myself on, and that I want to strive to always reach, and that I had to work out, okay, how am I going to do this? You know, that was a luxury problem to have, but I think it's not necessarily just about that one time. Sometimes it's just time management, having too many things to do, prioritizing, probably the same things that most recruiters working for a company struggle with as well. And I think, at the beginning, maybe just finding your place, finding your clients, finding where you need to focus your time, definitely been the biggest challenges. If you could go back and give yourself one bit of advice, what would that be?
I have two
hindsight
things.
Is great.
Two things. One of them, learn to say no, or make sure you only work with those companies that actually value you, that show some commitment. You know, it can be a desperate client that really needs someone right now. That's usually very important because they rely on you, and they're much more willing to go into detail, to qualify the role into details, give you some time with the line managers. They're willing to meet you in person. They will be able to, or open for a collaboration in the long run. That's where I think that's where I could have done a bit better from the very beginning. And the second one is certainly that it's okay not to fill every role that you're assigned to, especially on a success-based. I strive to fill every role, and I'm a bit disappointed every time someone else manages to place or find the right person. But that's just me. I'm just too ambitious.
I know it's a great attribute to have. I think, I mean, it's actually a really good point that Lukas mentioned there. Learn to say no, because I think that's one of the biggest challenges in when you start in recruitment, your own business, because you're nervous. You know, coming back to what Marin said earlier, you maybe have a bit of fear. You're not sure. There's a client in front of you saying, "Yeah, sure, help us." The question is there 10 other companies also working on that position, and how you prioritize that? It comes also a little bit to the terms and conditions. And I think that what people perhaps are too eager to do in the beginning is be too flexible on their terms and conditions, and because again you're at the start and you just want to get the business in and get it going, and learn to say no. You're now going to be your own boss. Pick and choose your clients where you can. How specialised should you be? I think we probably have a different opinion on this, but you want to go first?
You want to start? Okay.
Well, no, I can go first.
Okay.
Personally, I believe that when you're starting a business, and especially if it's just you need to be as specialised as possible. I am a true believer of having a niche and being an expert in that niche, because I think that what doesn't make sense, and it depends on your business model, but what doesn't make sense for me is, let's say if I said I do everything IT, just as an example. Today I have a requirement for somebody in development, tomorrow in infrastructure, the next day in support, the following day in leadership, whatever it may be. I'm constantly restarting my search from scratch and having to look for that person over and over again. So I have no reusability for all of that hard work and effort that I've gone into, and it's harder for me to be an expert in all of those areas and really go into depth. And
so you have to be an expert, because the assessment of the candidates is done by the experts internal.
Absolutely. But if we talk about something Gabriel mentioned before about how many recruitment companies around and things like that, I personally am, I think you can be successful in both ways, but I'm personally more of a fan of saying, you know what, become a expert in recruiting development profiles, to be able to brand yourself, to be able to be known as the development recruiter, to be able to have, when a developer is coming to you, you can actually show them 3 or 4 different opportunities, get them 3 or 4 interviews, and maximizing your opportunity to place them.
I agree. That's essentially what the executive search C-level companies, for example, they say, our consultants, they have been in the job themselves, they know exactly what they need and so on. I agree, but then at the same time, I am one person. Little example, I was actually interviewing once before becoming independent in a really renowned local firm. And they basically said, you're the right one, you do the Java developers, you have to do that. And I was like, look, I come from a background, I'm a very curious person. I come from a background where I get niche roles that I've never seen before. I never heard about it before. And I'm like, wow, what is that? A single-use bioreactor sales specialist with 80% travel in North and Eastern Germany. And I'm like, wow, this is a James Bond movie to me. I want to learn all about it. So it takes a bit longer, but if you know how to drive the car, and if you do your research and post the right questions in the qualification, you will get into that niche. So what I'm doing is, because I'm only one person, I focus on IT in general, some specific profiles that are really, really well sought, but I'm still open to be the one-stop shop for my clients. I don't want them to have to research another person in the long run who is specializing in that field necessarily, and it works for me. I've placed people that, they ask me, can you find us this person? I'm like, hey, look, sure, of course.
It's always possible to find the people. I believe, though, if you are starting your own business, and you need to maximize all of your activities because there's only so many hours in the day. I think that if you can offer more opportunities to a candidate, you can increase the opportunity for them to be placed. You add more value to them as an individual. You learn more and more about your area, and I think it's easier to market yourself in one area than to be broad. But again, I'm living that in my
Yeah.
kind of everything recruitment world. But that's the great thing. I think there's no one way.
Yeah.
You've been fantastically successful, guys, and he has been over the last couple of years in what you've built up and the placements you can do and how you do it. And I like to think the same of myself in my niche and my specialism. So I think it works in both ways.
Yes, I think to come back to that example that I did. This one person answered who wanted to hire me, and I said, no, look, I would be too bored just doing Java developers. He told me, but Lukas, you can make much more money if you just specialize, much quicker, much more money. And I'm like, is that really the goal though? Is that the only goal that you want, or do you want to really take into account the goals of the clients and the candidates? And also what I do for non-specialist roles that I kind of try to focus on is I just ask for a mandate. And if the client is willing enough to give me that mandate, that specific niche role,
which is fine. And again, that's the great thing. Just to kind of sum that around that point up, that's the great thing about starting your own business is that you can do things in the way that you want to do it for your clients and candidates, and not perhaps be in a bigger organization where the only focus is on numbers.
Yeah.
If it's not a huge company with a huge amount of volume, it comes back to exactly what I said at the beginning. And one of the most important things about our business in recruitment is that people buy from people. People want to work with you because you deliver on what you say, because in certain elements they like you or like the service that you're delivering. I think that's a huge point as well. People become self-employed. I think that's probably the reality. So on that note, it's been a really cool session.
Yeah.
Really enjoyed the questions, and I think that leaves us with nothing else to say but ngwette miteinander. Bon appetit. Enjoy your lunches. Look forward to the next session. Thank you so much, Lukas, for joining.
Thank you for making it happen. And if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to both of us.
Exactly. And if you need any IT people, he's your guy. If you need any recruiters, I'm your guy. So looking forward to the next sessions in the next weeks. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thanks.
Have a great day.